Hello and welcome to While You're at the Library. We know that this is your favorite television show involving librarians sitting around a table talking about books. Just if you have a library show that you like a little bit better, tell us about it. But we think that this is probably your favorite. So, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We are going to talk about all sorts of books today. Heavy books, light books, green books, all kinds of books. I'm Catherine Poulter. I'm the children's librarian, and here is John Bickelhaupt. What do you do at the library, John?
I work in reference.
Very nice.
I answer questions.
Very good. Kathan, tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm a young adult librarian, and I do all things teen and tween.
Yes. And here's Becky Hadley.
I'm the lead circulation librarian, and I help you find books.
Very nice. Here's Becky Mitten.
And I work in circulation.
That's
and
great.
help a lot of patrons find books.
That is good. And then our Amy.
I am the public services supervisor.
And oh, we have such good times at the library. It's a wonderful place to work and a really great place to visit. Amy, I see you have a big stack there. Would you like to start with one?
It looks like we will start with werewolves. Yes, because
Not
who doesn't like
swearwolves.
yes,
Not swearwolves.
yeah. A good werewolf story, this one is.
That
So, Devil in the Countryside is actually based on the true story surrounding the most famous werewolf investigation in history. It opens in the year 1588, and a killer is terrorizing the German countryside. And a man named Heinrich Franz is trying to find out who the killer is, or maybe what the killer is, because rumors abound that the legendary werewolf of Bedburg has returned. Heinrich has to team up with a mysterious man who just coincidentally came into town at around this same time. They've got to work together to try to investigate what exactly is going on. And the novel also follows as a secondary story a priest who's battling his own personal demons as he struggles to maintain peace and calm with his very panicked congregation. So. There's war, there's intrigue, there's love, betrayal. There are a few vendettas thrown in there, but is there an actual werewolf?
I want to read it. I want to read it.
And what part of Germany is it in?
I don't know.
Just it is.
In Germany.
Great. Thank you. That's
You're
exciting. Scary. Becky, we're so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to share about our new family history kits. So this is kind of the debut. We created these so that families could kind of get to know each other better and maybe record stories and things that they could pass on from one generation to another. So I'm just going to show you kind of what's in the kit. We have a game called Chatter Matters that has a lot of fun things to get to know family members. We have a book kind of specifically for kids, and I love the concept behind this because a lot of times as kids we have all these fun things that happen, and sometimes they're not so fun things, but we don't record them. And then when you get older and you go back and try to remember, you can't remember them. So just different categories like what I love about nature and outdoors. What do you love about music? What do you love about people? What makes you feel warm and snuggly inside? So you record these things that your children are telling you, or your children can record them, and they can have this passed down later to their kids. So I love that concept. Then we have a book that's an interview with your family that talks about how to actually interview and record your family, which I love that idea. And we also thought that this would be something that people that maybe interact with older people in nursing homes and facilities, that they could help them,
Record their
stories, and that it could also help, with making them come out of their shell, because it helps bring back those memories. And it's really a small book. It's not overwhelming, and it tells you how to use a tripod, how to record different ways, all kinds of questions to ask, so you don't have to come up with your own questions. And it's just a really fun thing, and we've just been really excited to debut this here at the library, and it checks out for 2 weeks.
Wonderful. And is this the only one, or will there
We
be
have
more?
2
than-
of them.
2 kits. Oh, great.
So
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I'm excited to
yeah,
use that.
it's checked out already, so people have
Good.
used it, so we're excited.
Very nice. And Becky, what do you have for us?
Well, I have a fun audiobook to share with you today. This one is called Outfoxed by David Rosenfeld. It's actually part of the Andy Carpenter mystery series, and it's the newest one. I just decided I never tried this author, but it's got a cute dog on the front, right? So it starts with Brian Atkins, who is in prison for fraud. He is part of a program where the prisoners help train dogs. And he has about 18 months left to his sentence. And Andy Carpenter, who happens to be his lawyer and who's over the prison dog program, is really hoping that when Brian gets done, he'll be able to adopt this dog. His name is Boomer. He's a fox terrier. And then when it's time for his hearing to come up to see if he can get early parole, the day before that, Brian escapes using Boomer to escape. So it kind of throws a little wrench into the dog training program. But the odd thing that happens is the same day he escapes, the 2 people that testified against him for fraud are killed. And so everybody thinks that Brian is guilty. And Andy knows that he's not. And so Brian was one of the head people in a big computer company called Starlight. And through the different visits that they've had, they've kind of figured out maybe who could have been setting him up. And one of the people killed was his wife. And
Brian's wife?
Brian's wife. And they go back through some text messages and they find out that the reason that he has escaped is to prevent her death. He's escaped to try to save her. But instead, it looks like he's escaped to kill her.
But she testified against him?
She testified against what was found on the computer. But it was incriminating evidence that was planted there. So as the story gets a little deeper, as they're doing investigations, they find out that one of the main people involved in this is a man named Dominic Patrone, which happens to be the mob boss. And so the table turns, and it doesn't only become, let's prove that Brian is innocent. It becomes, let's
Get the bad guy.
yeah, let's get the mob boss here. Because the mob boss has taken over different areas of the town and is using information from this computer company to get sales in an even larger area. And so there's a lot of drug sales going on, and they're able to track him down. And it's really interesting how it all comes together. I don't want to give too much out, but Andy, the lawyer, is doing a lot of the investigating himself, because the police are just like, no, he pleaded guilty, he's done. But he pled guilty to save other people. And Andy, the lawyer, wants to make sure that the right people are behind bars. And the only help he really has is Marcus, who is this big, tough, strong guy. And he is the one that helps him go up against the mob. And they do a nice little stakeout, and the cute dog on the cover is really not throughout much of the book. He's at the beginning, at the end. But it is a fun book to read. It does have a lot of language in it. If that bothers you, this wouldn't be for you. But it was a fun book to listen to. So once again, that's Outfoxed by David Rosenfeld, and that's one of our new audiobooks.
Great, thank you.
Well, I don't know exactly where I want to begin, but I will start with a book that I am now currently reading that I really am enjoying, and I'll tell you why. This book is called Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. And I picked it up because I loved the cover, partly.
Good.
And I also enjoyed the what it talked about on the inside. This is about a girl named Eliza Merck. I believe her name is Merck. And she's really shy. She's in her senior year of high school. She doesn't have any friends. She very rarely speaks, but she is, online, the creator of a wildly popular webcomic called Lady Constellation. Well, actually, it's called Monstrous Sea, but she is Lady Constellation online. And she has got millions of fans and, you know, just wildly popular. She's got 2 friends online that she keeps in contact with, and one has helped her create an outlet for clothing and different things related to her webcomic. And so little to her parents know, but she's making money on this, and they just said, oh, you know, they just think it's a hobby, and they just say, oh, you know, just open your own bank account. Well, she's got enough money to put herself through college practically, and they have no idea. And she has 2 younger brothers that I think are in 9th grade.
Twins?
And no, they're not twins, they're a year apart. Sully and, forgot his name. They were just kind of interesting names. That's why that doesn't mention their names right off. At any rate, so it starts out with her, you know, talking about writing her webcomic, and then a new boy comes to school. His name is Wallace Warland. Turns out Wallace is a big fan of Monstrous Sea, and he's the biggest fan fiction writer she has. So a fan fiction is when somebody writes a story based on your either story or, in her case, the webcomic. So he's putting into words what she is drawing. And she discovers that he is this person online that is known as Rainmaker, and they become friends, and he hardly talks at all either. It's like, you know, they text message back and forth.
But he doesn't know that she's who she is.
She doesn't tell him. She's afraid to tell him because it's just something that's so close to her that she just doesn't feel like, she doesn't want to share it with anybody. And I know how it ends, so I don't want to give that away, but I really am enjoying this, and it has pictures throughout of things that she's drawing for her webcomic. It's really hard to see on the page right here, but you know, just the whole storyline and the text messages that she and Wallace send back and forth. So I was intrigued by it for that reason, the fact that there was fan fiction involved, and also for the story about her, because it reminds me a lot of another couple of books I've read that I've talked about before by by Rainbow Rowell. Eleanor and Park, another girl who's not quite fitting in and becomes friends with an unlikely person in school. And the characters are somewhat similar. And then Rainbow Rowell also wrote a book about, it's not Carry On. Carry On, it's called Fangirl. Fangirl? Yeah, Fangirl. And that is about a girl, her 2 sisters. One is writing fan fiction, and they both go on to college, and the one sister, they've been super close, but when they get to college, one sister moves off into the social life, and this other one writes her fan fiction. And so you always have the relationship between the 2 sisters going on, and then the fan fiction story that she's writing. And I remember being a little impatient with that because I wanted the story about she and her sister and how their relationship was going to work out, because they seemed to be growing apart. However, when Rainbow Rowell wrote the 3rd book, or the next book that followed Fangirl, it was called Carry On, and it was the fan fiction. And it's kind of a Harry Potter-ish type of story, so it was really fun to read that and have that story come to life in a book form. Any rate, if you like fan fiction, or you like stories about people that maybe aren't quite fitting in, and you know, and how they come out of their shell and become somebody, you know, that find confidence in their real selves.
Yeah.
Anything by Rainbow Rowell, or this new book that I'm going to finish soon called Eliza and Her Monsters.
Nice. Thank you. Those look exciting.
Yeah.
John, you brought some heavy books today.
Yes, I did. the kind of the theme of my presentation today is gaps in the collection that I've been trying to fill.
Oh, good.
And it was like going through the 900s, and which is one of my areas, and the low 900s, and I discovered that we didn't have any recent books on geography.
Ooh.
There were like surveys of geography, and then I found this one, and this book is, as you can see, it's heavy,
Ooh,
and it's
cool.
beautiful, and
Go
it's got a
Bookmark in it.
bookmark in it. But the presentation of the information is really oriented towards visual.
Undersea trenches.
Yes, and so there's a lot of visual presentation of information here, which I really like. I really
Sedimentary
appreciate that.
rock gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
And then they talk about different gems here on this page, but this is just,
Molybdenum.
yeah, this is just a wonderful book just to kind of page through. They talk about weather and
Water.
Whether there is some weather.
We'll weather the weather,
Yeah.
whatever the weather.
So this is a kind of a text I could literally spend hours just kind of looking at.
Oh, yeah.
So this one I was really pleased to get for us, to have the library get. So
Lots of people will enjoy that.
so there's that one, and then another one which is just a little further past that one is an Atlas of Yellowstone.
Oh, we need that. Yeah.
We didn't have one before, and I ran across this, and it was highly recommended. And once again, it's a display of information. It's really oriented towards the visual display of information about the park. It's just like full of maps and graphs dealing with different aspects of the park, the ecology and geology and environment of the park.
Wow.
Tourism.
Yeah.
What's that? Religion and politics? Wow.
Religion and politics. Oh my goodness.
In Yellowstone.
Well,
In Yellowstone. Who knew?
Politics, I can see.
Glaciers.
Didn't know about religion.
Yeah. So, and it's as you should know,
There's
the
landscape change.
Yellowstone is, I believe, is the largest volcanic caldera in the world. It's
Wow.
a supervolcano, and so it's not just our first national park, but it's just a very geologically unique place.
With lots of maps.
Yeah,
That's
and
nice.
This is a great resource for finding out about it, and as close as we are, you can use this book to find out a lot about it before you visit.
Very
So-
nice.
So I was excited to see this and have this one come in.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, I brought a couple of the new Young Readers' Choice books. We have every year a selection of about 7 to 10 books in 3 different levels: junior, middle, intermediate division, and then the senior division, where if students read any 2 of these books, and hopefully more, they can vote for those in April, and then the new Young Readers' Choice Award will be given. That Young Readers' Choice Award is the oldest Readers' Choice Award really in the United States and maybe in the world, and it's been going on since the early 40s. This year, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the junior division, which is the area that I am most interested in. The other ones are also very good. Carry On by Rainbow Rowell is one of those that Kathann just spoke about. But I brought a couple, and I'll share one of them with you right now. This is called Fuzzy Mud. It's by Louis Sachar, the author of Holes. And it's about some genetic experiments. The chemical company that is located in a secret middle of the woods retreat is making a superbug that will cure disease and eat up oil spills and all sorts of things. But this superbug, just a little tiny bit of it, gets out. in some waste. And the creators thought that it was impossible for this bacteria to survive, and so they weren't worried about it. But we know what happens when bacteria has even a little bit of some kind of antibiotic on it. Most of the creatures die, but a few of them adapt and become resistant. Well, a few of the little microbes here became resistant to the oxygen that they thought would kill it, and pretty soon there's a bug loose, and this fuzzy mud starts to take over the small town. The thing is, this is an accident that really could happen, and there really can be superbugs that are developed that maybe only 1 in a billion of these creatures might survive, but there's trillions and quadrillions in every little vat of these things. So if 1 in a billion lives and there's a quadrillion, that's a lot of things that live. So this is about what the town does and what the children do and how they figure out how to stop this bug before it takes over the world. But it's very good. So Fuzzy Mud is one of the Young Reader's Choice books. And I'll tell about another one next time. But Amy, tell us about your next book.
I have a new David Sedaris book. This is Theft by Finding. It's excerpts from his diaries from 1977 to 2002. And Sedaris has written a lot of books. We Talk Pretty One Day, Let's Explore Diabetes with Owls, When You Are Engulfed in Flames, and many, many more. And all of those books started as observations that he first recorded in his diaries. He's kept diaries for more than 40 years now, and he records not only what he sees around him, but comments that he overhears, gossip, plot twists in his favorite soap operas, and secrets that complete strangers for some reason feel compelled to tell him. He writes it all down. And where a lot of diaries, most diaries maybe even, are really inward facing, it's really the writer writing about themselves, their own thoughts. His are very outward facing. They're very much about what he sees around them rather than his own feelings. Makes them for very, very interesting reading, very similar to what his books read like. Very funny, very human, very David Sedaris, if you like David Sedaris.
I wonder if he keeps 2 diaries.
One for public and one...
Can you read a sample?
Yeah. Well, I had a part marked here that I thought was especially funny. They start in 1977. They start when he's living in North Carolina. He moves to Chicago, then to New York, and then to Paris.
How old is he now?
Oh, now he's probably in his mid-50s, I would estimate.
So he's been keeping them for 40 years, so he started when he was 10?
Well, mid-50s, so maybe when he was a teenager.
Okay.
Yeah. But so he writes this word-for-word translation of what he tried to speak in French, what he tried to say in French to a French shopkeeper. And so he writes, October 3rd, 1999, Paris. A year ago, I would have begged you to accompany me to the hardware store, but now I go on my own. On the first of yesterday's 2 trips, I said to the clerk in French, hello, sometimes my clothes are wrinkled. I bought a machine anti-wrinkle, and now I search a table. Have you such a table? The fellow said, an ironing board? Exactly. So really just about his interactions with the world. It's really, again, if you like David Sedaris, you'll find this delightful.
That's very good. Thank you. Becky.
Well, I brought one of my all-time favorite books. And this is called Miss Bunkle's Book, and it's by an old author, D.E. Stevenson. And we kind of got rid of a lot of these because they weren't really very popular, and they have started reissuing them, and which is really fun. So I wanted to read you a little bit off the back because it's just such a funny book. Barbara Bunkle is in a bind. Times are harsh, and Barbara's bank account has seen better days. Maybe she could sell a novel if she knew any stories. Stumped for ideas, Barbara draws inspiration from her fellow residents of Silverstream, the little English village she knows inside and out. To her surprise, the novel is a smash. It's a good thing she wrote under a pseudonym because the folks of Silverstream are in an uproar. So it kind of makes everybody so angry, but the names are changed, and they don't know who wrote it, and so everybody's looking, and I just wanted to read a little.
How do they know it takes place in Silverstream?
Because it's all about real things that happen. So they are all recognizing themselves. So this doctor comes home this one night, and he tells his wife, who's still waiting for him, "You were very naughty to wait up," he told her, changing the subject. "Ina might have been there all night." "It was that book," Sarah said. "I meant to sit up until 12, and then I simply had to finish it." "My dear, you are in it." "Me? Nonsense," he said, smiling at her excitement. "It's not. You are," she told him eagerly. "Everyone in Silverstream is in it. It's all about Silverstream." "Well, then you are in it too, I suppose," he replied, humoring her, but not quite believing it was actually true. "I can't be in it without you, or there would only be half of me, less than half of me." He laughed comfortably. "Ha ha ha. I'm not in it," she said, wrinkling those eyebrows of hers, for it had not struck her until this moment that she was about the only person in Silverstream who did not figure in Disturber of the Peace. "But of course, you were only mentioned once or twice. Just a doctor who goes about giving his malingering patients castor oil." He shouted with laughter at that, and she had to remind him that the twins were sleeping overhead. "But you must read it, and then you'll see for yourself," she added. "Just you read it, Dr. John." So the whole town is in an uproar over this.
And they're reading it?
Yes, they're reading it. It's a huge hit, but everybody's angry about it, and it's just really funny. So this is probably one of my favorite books. I always recommend this.
Can they tell who wrote it by the nice things that are said about that person, or that she's
that
left
person
out?
I can't tell you. Don't give things away.
Give it away.
Oh, that's great.
It's a great book. And there's
Thank you.
actually 2 sequels from it, so check it out at the library.
Very nice.
It's a fun one.
Good.
So I haven't brought a picture book on the TV show for a while, and we had some really fun picture books come in, so I picked 2 of them to show today.
Kevin Henkes.
This is by Kevin Henkes. It's called Egg. And I love this because it has very few words, but you've got a bunch of different eggs at the beginning that are different colors, and they all crack. And 3 of them hatch, but one of them is a little delayed. And they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait. And then it starts to crack. And skip a few pages, out comes a crocodile instead of a bird. And I just think it's so cute because kids can tell this story along. But the poor little crocodile is really sad because he's very lonely, and the birds come back and be friends. And when you think this story is about over, you find out that there really is another egg. Because, where did that crocodile egg come from? And the story's not over because there was another bird.
Oh.
Anyways, so that's a really cute one. Egg.
Oh, that's
New
fun.
picture book. And then another one that I found that was really fun is called The Legend of Rock, Paper, Scissors.
Oh.
Oh,
And
yes.
this is by the same person that did the Day the Crayons Quit. I think we've talked about that one on here before. So rock, paper, and scissors are really good fighters. I have to show you the pictures in here. They're great. Really good fighters, but nobody wants to fight against them because everybody always loses.
Rock versus apricot.
Yeah.
Angry birds.
Right. And so they go off to find someone who is a worthy opponent. And pretty soon the 3 of them cross paths. And once again, it's based on the game Rock, Paper, Scissors. And they find that they have the perfect opponent among the 3 of them. There's always somebody
That can beat them.
that can beat them, which sometimes being beaten is just as important as being able to win, which I think has a good lesson to be learned.
You have made me
behind
so
it.
happy by
Yeah.
beating me.
Isn't that great? So, there we go. Each of them have a victory. Paper covers rock. I just love the pictures throughout this and the little comic book form that it
This is the best day of my life. Thank you for winning. Oh, great
Oh,
night
no.
of paper.
But I love scissors cuts paper and actual smile. So that's pretty cute. So anyways, new book in the picture books. The Legend of Rock, Paper, Scissors, and Egg.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Well, let's see here.
Oh, is that the book group one?
Yeah, I was going to talk about a book that my book group just finished reading called Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. And we've read another book by her, and another one that I really did like better. It's not that I didn't like this book, but
you did.
there are, like 11 or 12 women in my book group, and we all have different ideas about what's a great book, which is good because then we read lots of different books. And I don't know if it's because I'm a librarian, but that's what they said. I often am the one that will point out something that I don't think is well written, or I don't like the style or whatever. They just blame it on me being a librarian. But Firefly Lane is about two girls who meet when they're about 14, maybe about 8th grade. This is in 1974. Kate Malarkey just feels like, she's ugly, and she's, doesn't have any friends, and she's not, her friends that she had have moved on to parties and boys, and another girl moves into the neighborhood by the name of Tully or Tallulah. She's living with her grandmother, and she dresses the best, she has all the coolest clothes and coolest things, but she and Kate become friends. So this is a journey from that age for both of them through their 40s. And they're very different, but they become very close friends. And Tully is the leader. She's always determined that they're going to go into journalism, they're going to be news anchors together, and they do go on through high school and college, and they do work in the field of journalism. And Tully kind of takes off, and Kate ends up getting married and having a family, and so they're very different worlds, but they're always there for one another. I think it covered quite a bit of ground in 400 pages. I felt my problem with it, I guess, would be that it didn't have things happen and there didn't seem to be enough resolution, or they didn't have, it's like, oh, this happened, and then we move on to the next thing. And I kept thinking, wait a minute, that's not real life. You didn't get into what the repercussions were of this, or the consequences, or how they dealt with it, and that kind of bothered me. But everybody else in my book group loved it. And so I'm not going to say it's a badly written book or a bad book. It just didn't appeal to me as much as it could have. However, she wrote another book, and just so you know, there is a sequel. So the last couple chapters are tearjerkers in this one. But then the story continues with the sequel of Fly Away, also by her. But the one that we did read that I thought was kind of interesting was called Magic Hour. And this was set in the Pacific Northwest, in the Olympic National Forest, where a 6-year-old girl is found deep in an old growth forest, and she just appears out of nowhere. She doesn't speak. She's all alone. Nobody knows who she is. Nobody can find any hint of her past.
Was she raised by wolves?
They don't know. She's kind of wild. Not really raised by wolves, no. But there's a child psychiatrist who's had a scandal occur in her life, and she returns to her hometown, and she decides that she's going to find out what happened to this little girl and free her from this prison of isolation and fear. But in doing so, she also has to reconcile with her sister who lives there, Julia, who is the police officer that lives in that town. And so it was an interesting story about how they figured out what had happened to this little girl they call Alice, and what happens to her in the end. So I mean, I like this one a lot better. She is a very popular author, and she's written many, many different books. So if you like romance, or you like lots of description about places, then these two might be good books for you.
Great, thank you. Go for it.
Well, okay. So another gap in the collection that I found had to do with books for programming sound.
Oh.
So I found 2 books on sound programming on 2 different languages that can be used to program sound. And both of them are available free on the internet. So you can download them
Nice.
onto your computer and check out one of these books.
What is programming sound?
Programming sound is you literally write code.
Like for music.
Okay.
Yeah, to tell the computer what's on. Not just music though, because you can
Yeah.
also make some very strange sounding, bizarre sounds if you
okay.
want. This book actually explains how to make a virtual sitar and some other instruments. So there's actually some activities in this book where you can make musical instruments that sound like, emulate real instruments. There's a thing called a MIDI, which is a musical instrument digital interface, which is actually designed for connecting musical instruments to computers so that you can.
I'm familiar. I think my nephew does that. I want to say it's SoundCloud or something, but he creates music that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've
This
heard-
one's actually called Chuck. Okay. And
Chuck.
so there's a number of different programming. There's some other programming languages that aren't free that you can purchase. But the great thing about this is that these are pretty capable languages and they're available for free. So if
Nice.
you have a decent computer, you can download them and check out these books and actually learn how to program sound.
And open source so that if something is adapted, then you can.
Right,
Adapted.
they're open source programs. So and this one is called Chuck, okay, and this is the one that has the virtual sitar in it. So and then this other one is a program language called Super Collider.
So it's not about the Super Collider over on the hillside. It's
No, this is for programming music, this is for sound. And this is actually this is published by MIT, and the authors who wrote it developed the language at MIT, and they're connected with the fellows who did processing, which is another free programming language that you can use for graphics, okay? And this one is similar to processing, only it's for sound. So these are great. If somebody wants to if you have a computer with the internet connection, there's no barrier to you downloading this software and learning how to program with it. And
Cool.
I think the wonderful thing about graphics and sound programming is that it provides an entry into computer programming for people who might not be excited by the programs that are for dealing with text or databases or other kinds of programming that people can do. So I was really excited to find these and excited to put them into the collection.
about sound.
Yeah. And this last book is the Book of Audacity. This is also programmed for dealing with sound, but it's a little different than these. It's what you can do is you can hook up a microphone to your computer and record sound, and then after the fact you can manipulate the sound and fiddle with it.
Oh, cool.
Or if you have a collection of LPs, you can digitize your LP collection. If you've got the right equipment to do it, you can use this software
To
turn it
digitize.
into a digital file.
I
And
used this once for something, but I don't.
Does it takes
I
out-
learned this
you
sort
can
of
take
once,
out the-
but
Yeah.
it's been a long time.
Pops and clicks.
you can take out pops and clicks and hisses and things like that. And
We do.
so this is pretty powerful software for that. This does not, as I recall, have a MIDI interface. So you're not really in a position to directly digitize musical instruments.
But to affect the ones that you've already digitized.
Yeah, you can record musical instruments, and it's a digital recording, and then you can fiddle with that recording. And one thing I'm interested in doing with this myself is a lot of recordings that were put on LPs you'll have two separate songs that sort of fade into each other. And in the transfer to digital files on CDs or on the internet, or MP3 files, they have this gap now, this real noticeable gap between songs, which I guess they kind of need in order to separate them for individual
For different
play.
tracks or whatever.
But if you listen, if you like to listen to entire albums, it's disconcerting to be hearing a piece of music and have it suddenly interrupted before it goes on to the next track. And you can actually use this to get rid of those gaps. So
Cool.
this is exciting software, and I was really excited to get these books for the library. So.
Great, thank you. Thanks for finding those holes and filling them.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, I have another Young Reader's Choice book here. I liked this one so well. It's called Unusual Chickens for the Exceptional Poultry Farmer.
I love the
This book is about chickens with superpowers. Now, there's the heroine of this book is a little girl named Sophia, or Sophie, and she and her family, her mom and her dad, have just moved to a farm because they're very poor. This farm was left to them by her uncle, great uncle Jim, who died, and now they have to try to make a go of it. Well, Sophie knows that her uncle used to have chickens, and she wants to start farming, but she doesn't know where the chickens are. They're gone until one shows up, and the one that shows up seems to have some superpowers. So she follows this chicken around, and she writes letters to the company that sells chickens, and she has a correspondence going with one of the people who works at the company named Agnes. Well, Agnes tells her important techniques for caring for chickens, and so Sophie follows those techniques, and pretty soon she's starting to find more chickens. They seem to be appearing around in the countryside around, and people know that they used to be Great Uncle Jim's chickens. But there's also someone who seems to be stealing chickens. And Sophie wants those chickens back because chickens, not only are they interesting and have superpowers, but they lay eggs. And so she wants to earn some money for her family and sell the eggs. Well, in this book, there is a recipe. And I made this recipe, and it was delicious. It was a recipe for how to make something called, well, in Spanish it translates into crumbs. Here it is, it's called migas. And it's how to make this wonderful dish with tortillas and eggs, not chickens, but with tortillas and eggs, called migas. And it's very delicious. So if the only thing you read in this book is the recipe, you're in for a treat. But if you also read about the chickens with superpowers, you will enjoy this book very much. So, Unusual Chickens for the Exceptional Poultry Farmer by Kelly Jones. Very good story. All right, Amy.
Yes, I have Death of a Ghost by M.C. Beaton. M.C. Beaton also writes the Agatha Raisin series, but this one is her newest Hamish Macbeth series. And Hamish Macbeth, or her newest Hamish Macbeth book in that series. Hamish is a very intelligent but very unambitious Scottish police officer. He's really much happier hanging out with his little elderly flock of sheep than trying to climb the police ladder and solve big crimes in big cities. And he lives in this little tiny village named Loch Dew, And for such a small, isolated village, it has an incredibly high crime rate. So it gives
Like
Hamish.
Midsummer.
Yes, lots of people die all the time. But that gives Hamish lots of opportunities to really work his mind and solve the mysteries, and that gives us lots of opportunities to read about his adventures. This is actually, I think it's the 32nd book in the series. So if you like
32 people have died?
well, multiple people in each book. Right. So, and I think they probably span maybe 2 or 3 years. So really a lot going on in this little
It
village.
costs them a
crime
lot
rate.
to replace the population signs every few months.
Yeah. So in this one, Hamish and his fellow police officer, Charlie, they're asked to investigate a reported haunting of a castle. And they really think that it's probably, the weird sounds and the weird lights are just coming from teenagers hanging out there in the middle of the night. But they agree to go spend the night in the castle. And they're up there. Everything seems to be fine. They think this has just been a waste of time. We're going to go get something to eat. We shouldn't even be here. And then Charlie disappears. And that's when the mystery begins. Very fun, very, very typical Hamish Macbeth's book.
Nice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I brought a children's book. I love children's books. This is actually a Newbery Honor book, but I think it's also a Young Reader's Choice this year.
It is.
And I love this so much. I told my granddaughters about it, and one of my granddaughters read it, and it's one of her favorite books now. And it's about a little girl who's Ada, and she's 10, but she's never left her one-room apartment. She lives in, I think, London with her little brother Jamie, and she has a very cruel mother. And the reason is because Ada is handicapped. She has a twisted leg, and so her mother is so ashamed of her that she won't let anybody see her. She locks her in the cupboard. I mean, she does the least little thing, so she's a horrible mother. And but Ada somehow kind of rises above it. Luckily for her, though, World War II happens, which you wouldn't think is lucky, but it is for Ada and her little brother. They get shipped out of London to escape the war, and the lady that takes them in is a lady named Susan Smith, and she is not used to having anybody around. She's only taking care of herself. She has a pony. She takes them in, but kind of under duress, and at her home, though, she teaches Ada how to read and write, and Ada teaches herself how to ride a pony. And it's really a book about hope, I think, because you can be in all sorts of awful situations, but there can be hope and you can rise above it. And it has a great ending. I love the ending. They watch for German spies, and sometimes they're heroes, and it's just a really fun, quirky, but touching book. Susan begins to love Ada and Jamie, but in the end, will their bond be enough to hold them together through the war? And it just is a really sweet story, and I just would encourage anybody to check this out. It's
What year
a
is
really
it
good
set
book.
in? Did you
It's
say?
set during World War II.
Oh, World War II.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember if you said.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I came across another audio. It's called Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World. And this is by Admiral William H. McRaven from the U.S. Navy. And so it starts off, he was asked to give a speech in 2014 for the graduates of the University of Texas. And this speech was recorded and put on the internet and had so many people watch it, and so many people contact him and ask for more information that he decided to write this book. And what he does is he gives you the 10 things that you can do that are as simple as making your bed that can change your life and maybe the world. And so he starts off with making your bed, and if you at least make your bed in the morning, you've accomplished at least one thing. And I thought that was a really good perspective. And then he uses stories from his Navy life. He was in the Navy for 36 years.
Wow.
And how doing the simple task would help you. And one of my other favorite parts, I think it was like step 8 or 9, was if you're chin deep in mud, you need to sing. Sing. And so it talked about going through basic training and the week of hell that they put them through, that they are in a total muddy terrain, and their instructor comes to him and says, if I can have 5 people quit, well, I'll get a good warm bed and chicken noodle soup for dinner. And nobody wants to quit, because if you quit, you don't become the Navy SEAL you're wanting to be. And as they start looking around at each other, one person starts singing, and pretty soon they all start singing and they bond.
What song
And
do they sing?
It doesn't say. It says it's a popular tune on the radio that probably was not appropriate. That's all it said. But it bonded them because they all could refocus and be like, you know what, we can make it through the next 24 hours. It's okay that we're freezing and covered in mud. We can do this.
We're not going to give up.
We're not give up. We're going to become those Navy SEALs. And so I wrote down that life is tough, but we must meet those challenges with discipline, determination, positive attitude, and the support of others. So this teaches us that even all of us can do our best even when life's darkest moments come around. So this is a good self-help book if you want to designate it as that, but it's also a good one that would be like graduation gift
Inspirational.
or somebody
Yeah.
that's struggling. Lots of good inspirational stories in it.
Great.
So this is new. The book is still on its way. It's in the 179.6s, and it's called Make Your Bed.
Wonderful.
Sounds
Which is
good.
a,
Thank you.
I'm trying to think of the category. We can social, the
Improvement.
Dewey.
Yeah.
There's a subject area that refers to.
Did you have anything else
I
to
don't have
talk
another
about?
book, but I will, and this will be beyond. You'll see this, but we've been really, really busy this summer with summer programming. The theme of build a
Better
Build a
world.
better world. We will be doing a cardboard arcade for the general public to enjoy. Well, the teens have been working on making about 5 games so far. We're not done yet, but we're working on it. So it'll just be a fun thing to enjoy on the 11th of August, which is a Friday, at 2 o'clock for about an hour. And so I want to encourage people to come and support that. It's been interesting to watch the kids start out with this. And initially it was just sort of playing around with the cardboard and playing around with some tools we had that they could use with the cardboard. And now they've actually been coming together and making the game work, at least, with cardboard. It's all kind of fun. It's all based on Kane's Arcade, which was a cardboard arcade a young man created 5 years ago or so.
Wonderful.
But tomorrow will be our flagship party.
Oh, because it's Harry Potter.
Harry Potter's birthday is on the 31st of July, and so we'll be celebrating it with the teens on the 28th with a Harry Potter cosplay.
And
So
with-
kids can come
yeah.
dressed up as a Harry Potter character or a character from the book or movie and enjoy lots of fun things. And then we'll repeat parts of it again on Monday for younger kids. So
On his
just
actual
on his
birthday.
actual birthday. So even those may not show until after all this is over. If you wondered what all the hullabaloo was about parties and planning, and that's what we've been doing for the last several weeks, is
And
trying to
it's
get
been
ready
so
for this,
fun.
and it's really going to be cool.
Good, thank you. John, I want to know about algorithms.
Oh, algorithms. Well, okay, that was another gap. I was looking at our computer books, and I noticed we did not have any books about algorithms. So I ordered 3, and 2 have come in. And an algorithm, if you know what an algorithm is, it's a process of steps that you go through to reach a goal, to solve a problem.
Like a Rubik's Cube.
Like a Rubik's Cube, yeah. So there's an algorithm for solving a Rubik's Cube, and there's actually a number of formally defined algorithms that are used in computer science, in programming, and these are books about that. And this one is called Introduction to Algorithms, and this is a very serious book. This is a textbook, so. But I felt that we should have something available for people who wanted to learn something about programming,
Yeah.
apart just from learning a language, maybe learn something about how they can use the language. And
Matrices.
yeah, and so this is an rather in-depth book on the topic. And then this one I found is kind of written at a lower level, and it's
Simplified.
illustrated with
Mice.
mice or rats, you know, if you want to take the negative point of view. And it's a lot of drawings. It's a very accessible book.
So
and,
if you want to read that one first and you're intrigued, then you can move on
then
to
you
the
can move on to
headcutting.
this one. I
Okay.
wouldn't try to tackle this one first.
Well, I want to try to tackle this
And,
one first.
I don't think I'd tackle it at all.
Yeah, this one is actually kind of fun, and he talks about different. There's an algorithm called a merge sort, and then there's a search algorithm that's
Merge sort, something they do in, mailing in Word programs or something
well, yeah, I mean
that I
Yeah.
could never figure out.
does that too, but
With a macro.
yeah. So actually,
Over me.
a lot of algorithms are sorting algorithms, just involved with the figuring out the quickest way to do a sort. But the binary search is that's an example of an algorithm that's really a great example because it's an example of something where you can do something one way, and it'll have a really relatively small number of steps, and you'll get to your solution very quickly. And then you can try it another way, and it'll take you forever. And
Right.
Oh, I
use
do
up-
that way all the time.
I
don't ever do it short.
It's a structured query language kind of
I'm
thing
terrible at that.
to set up the problems
Yeah,
correctly so that
Yeah.
you can reach the answer.
it's a methodology, and it's usable in any programming language.
Yeah.
I am not a computer programmer.
So
Thank you. That's exciting. Maybe I'll check them out.
Go for it. Go for it.
this one makes a good paperweight, if
Yeah,
nothing else.
that's
so-
right.
Or a doorstop. So.
Well, thank you for coming and joining with us in our nice little living room today. We have so many more books to share with you and hope that you can come and talk to us about some of your favorites. So please join us, and now we'll sign off and see you next time. Goodbye.